Part 22. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 211. Chapter 211. Sorry, your phone number is currently on the phone. Please try again later. When Sunian heard this, his pupils suddenly shook. Hand cream. Old man, what does this mean? What does this mean? Is that what she meant? Knowing that she had beaten Lee Baiken, why did she give her hand cream? The butler continued when Sunian's pupils were shaking. Young lady, the master said that the hands are a woman's second face, so he feels that since you use it, you must take good care of it. This hand cream, I selected the best hand cream from hundreds of hand creams in the shortest time and sent it to you. Of course, if you feel bad, young lady, then you can tell me, I can help you change it. Sunian. Do you think Lee Baiken can't kill me? Although I know that the old man has clearly told Lee Baiken that I am protected and supported by him, but I stay with Lee Baiken every day, and it will only take a minute for him to kill me. Forget it, let's just run away. Sunian immediately planned to stand up. But before she could stand up completely, she was held in the man's arms. Sunian. Lee Baiken hugged Sunian and motioned to the housekeeper to bring the things over. You must know that the housekeeper is the old man's confidant. Since he is the person whom the old man protects, of course he must pay special attention to him. When he saw Lee Baiken's behavior, he quickly said, "Young master." Lee Baiken's eyes glanced at him. The housekeeper can only hand it over if he is obedient. Lee Baiken took the thing, opened it, and poured the hand cream on his big palm. Since it is Dad's wish, if we waste it, Dad will definitely be sad. Sunian's body froze. MD, is this girl going to die here today? It's finished. What should I do if I have to die? She watched as Lee Baiken raised his hand, and then applied hand cream to her hand bit by bit. The hands of the two people were intertwined like this. Every collision. This all made Sunian's heart move. 10 fingers connected to the heart. In this case. After realizing what he was thinking, Sunian couldn't help but spit on himself. What's wrong with me? Why is my mind filled with yellow waste? What's wrong with my fingers and my heart? I can think of these 4 words randomly. I'm really drunk. When Lee Baiken heard this, he raised his eyebrows slightly. Then he whispered in her ear, 10 fingers can connect our hearts. Can this connect our hearts? Sunian couldn't help but look sideways when he heard this. The two people looked at each other. Next moment. Sorry, your phone is currently on the phone, please try again later. Haha, this can actually say this. If he's ground. However, Sunian still looked elsewhere. Lee Baiken could naturally tell that she was feeling guilty. He lowered his head and continued to apply hand cream on Sunian carefully. Okay, Sunian has used it. If the effect is good tomorrow, then I will tell the old man and ask you to continue sending it. When the housekeeper saw the two of them so close, he almost burst into laughter. Okay, young master, if young mistress is really effective, you can tell me at any time, and I will definitely do it in the shortest possible time. Send the things over within the time. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 212. Chapter 212. Sunian is ruined. Sunian is ruined. She stayed in her room watching TV dramas every day, and only appeared in front of Lee Baiken during dinner. Even when he was eating, he didn't even look at him at all. Sunian's sudden cold attitude really made Lee Baiken a little uncomfortable. Ask about love. Sunian is always talking and writing. During this period, Lee Baiken secretly went to Sunian's room to search when she was not in the room, and found that she had already written it, but she had not taken it out at all. Sunian, Of course Beidou is fast, and it doesn't take much effort. Of course Lee Baiken didn't want such a result. Night. After finishing watching another drama, Sunian stretched himself out and thought about whether to ask his servants to give him something to eat. Just at this time, there was a knock on the door. Sunian happily got out of bed and opened the door when he heard the sound. But after opening the door, Sunian was shocked. Because Lee Baiken was standing at the door wearing only a bathrobe, with his chest exposed. What's the matter with that? Sunian spent a lot of effort to look away from where he shouldn't be looking. There's something wrong with the shower in my room, can I use yours? Sunian? Now Sunian really suspects that his ears heard it wrong. Can't you call someone to fix it? She asked doubtfully. What does this guy want to do? Why does he use such a bad excuse? Do you think I'm a fool? After all, he is worth hundreds of billions and a domineering president of a business empire. Even if he does not have such an awesome status, the place they live in is a modern society and there are staff working 24 hours a day, so they will not come to borrow me bathroom. Lee Baiken, can he say he didn't expect it? He came here mainly because he wanted to know what Sunian was thinking these days and what he planned to do next. Anyway, Lee Baiken always felt that he couldn't keep up with this woman's brain. Lee Baiken said expressionlessly, it's a bit too late now Sunian, but it's only 7 o'clock in the evening. Then the two of them just stared at each other. Finally, Lee Baiken said, aren't you willing to lend me your money? Sunian looked at Lee Baiken. She even felt that this guy's face now had I am the master of this place. What right do you have to be unwilling? Of course I do, of course I do, I'm just worried that you won't be used to it. Sunian silently moved out of the way. Lee Baiken came in and walked towards the bathroom. Sunian ignored him and yawned directly, lying on the bed. She looked at the bathroom. I really don't understand this plot. If I remember correctly, this plot should appear in the plot of a woman hooking up with a man. If I didn't know this, I would have thought that Lee Baiken was obsessed with me. Hey, I don't want to bother with it anyway. That thing was going to happen that day anyway. Why did I bother for so long? The longer I bothered, this guy would feel that I was the one giving him face. Lee Baiken stopped. Does this mean to give up? Why does this woman give up so easily? Lee Baiken then turned around and saw Sunian crawling back into bed, looking at his phone with interest. And her current voice gave Lee Baiken an ominous premonition. Wow, 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 it turns out that there is something about men becoming without women. This is good, this is good. I don't want to spend money, but who asked this little brother to call me the little sister of the list? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 213. Chapter 213. This planet is no longer suitable for her to live in. Lee Baiken walked lightly and walked behind Sunian. I saw a man dancing angrily on the screen of Sunian's mobile phone. When you look at Sunian, you can say that his eyes are shining. Is this what she kept saying she was writing? Haha, for 1,000 UN rocket, you can use it as soon as you want. If the old man knew the money to give Sunian comfort and used it to do this, I don't know what his expression would be. Sunian silently raised his head when he fired 10 rockets. Unexpectedly, she saw Lee Baiken sitting next to her. Sunian. Why come again? It's really scary. Why is he here if he doesn't take a shower? Sunian accidentally unmuted her voice because she was so frightened by Lee Baiken. Miss Nian, are you still here? What do you want to see? Whether you want to see a big pendulum, a small powered train, or a whistle dance? Sunian. Don't ask, the question is that this planet is not suitable for her to live in, and she wants to consider living on another planet. Lee Baiken, it seems like someone is looking for you. Sunian simply turned off the phone and threw it away. No, no one came to see me. Baiken, you heard me wrong. Baiken, what's the matter with you? Didn't you come to take a shower? Why didn't you take a shower? Get used to it. If you are not used to it, tell me. While Sunian was talking, Lee Baiken gradually approached her. Just like this, when he got closer, she would back away. Soon, Sunian was forced to the wall. Can I tell you? Sunian nodded. Baiken, do you want to say that if no one gives you a bath, I can give you a bath? When Sunian finished saying this, he wanted to give himself a slap in the face. Ah, Sunian, has your head been squeezed by them? This is a domineering president. Does a domineering president still need to take a bath? And with Lee Baiken's appearance as a chaste and fierce woman, how could he let me, a dirty woman, touch his noble body, haha. But Sunian still couldn't help but think about what it would look like if Lee Baiken's body was rubbed with mud. The picture is really too beautiful, I dare not think about it. Then I'll trouble you. Sunian's eyes suddenly widened. What does it mean to be in trouble? Lee Baiken stood up. After standing upright, he began to undress and take off his belt. The naked body is exposed to the air. Sunian felt that the entire space had become dry, and his nose even felt a little warm. That's right, Lee Baiken did it on purpose. He just wanted Sunian to know how those sissy men could compete with him. Sunian really doesn't know how to describe her mood now. What does this guy want to do? Does he want to seduce me into making a mistake? Impossible, impossible, according to Lee Baiken's licking dog temperament. Yes, yes, this guy must have done this on purpose, just to make me unable to control myself, and then directly beat him up. This guy is really getting more and more scheming. He is actually capable of doing such shameless things. I will never be fooled. Let this guy make a futile effort. Become a joke. Won't you be fooled? Lee Baiken glanced slightly sideways, looking at the excited woman behind him, and the corners of his mouth curled up unconsciously. And Sunian took a few steps, but now she felt a bit like a pervert who peeked at other people's showers. It was obviously Lee Baiken who asked for it. Sunian straightened his chest when he thought of this. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 214. Chapter 214 Lee Baiken, what can you do to me? Sunian still felt that he had overestimated his endurance. In the bathroom. When the water dripped onto the man's huge muscles, it slowly rolled down, passing through many ravines like mountains and canyons. The heat slowly rose, making his abdominal muscles feel like he was holding a pipa half covering his face. Even though she had the most intimate relationship with the man in front of her in her previous life, it was only today that she discovered most intuitively that this man had such a good figure. I really can't take my eyes away. Sunian took a deep breath silently. What are you doing standing there? Sunian came to his senses and took the towel from the shelf next to him. As she got closer, she felt more and more clearly the male hormones that belonged exclusively to him. Sunian held the handkerchief and rubbed his back expressionlessly. She tried her best to focus on rubbing mud and not think about other things. Don't say it yet. As expected of a domineering president. After what Sunian thought was the most difficult time in her memory, she said, Okay, Baiken, I've almost finished your back. After saying this, Sunian planned to run away directly. But before she could turn around completely, someone grabbed her hand and pulled her back. The two of them stood like this. Previously, Lee Baiken thought that by pretending to be in love and having less physical contact, the relationship between them could become pure. At least she was not touching him for the purpose of giving birth to the child. But now it seems that if we don't give this woman any benefits, we will hang her. She will see other men without hesitation. You forgot the front. I don't think it's a good habit to give up halfway. Give up halfway? Could it be, this guy is crazy. Did he have a brain problem today, or did I have a brain problem, and he was hallucinating? What's going on? What's going on? Can anyone tell me what's going on? No matter how excited Sunian was, no, he was shocked, not excited. Lee Baiken picked up the veil again, put it into her hand, and took the initiative to put her hand on his body. Sunian finally couldn't bear it anymore and couldn't help but ask, "Aren't you afraid that I will do something to you?" Lee Baiken asked, "What can you do to me?" Sunian. She thinks everything is right. But it's impossible for Lee Baiken not to know my little thoughts. Could this be a disguised invitation? I took this opportunity to get the seeds. After all, he was like this. If I were still indifferent, it would not look like I was too ignorant. This made Sunian feel energetic all of a sudden. But just when Sunian was about to do other things, Lee Baiken's voice sounded again, "But I remember that we said we wanted a pure love before, so I think you shouldn't be able to do anything to me." Sunian really didn't know what to say. She has taken off her pants, tell her this. What's wrong? Did I say something wrong? Sunian endured the anger in her heart. Baiken, what do you mean by saying this? It's like I'm thinking something. I just want to help you and let you know that I am still useful as a wife. After all, couples are very particular. It's just about supporting each other. Why can't I understand what you're saying? Don't you understand? Maybe I'm overthinking. Sunian sneered, "It's not that you think too much, but that you have too many stereotypes about me, and you think that everything I do for you is out of consideration." After saying this, she threw away the handkerchief. When it came to Lee Baiken, "Baiken, you'd better do it yourself." After saying that, he left angrily. Lee Baiken had no intention of stopping him this time, but after Sunian left, he turned the faucet to cold water. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 215. Chapter 215 Return all the old man's cards. Sunian ran to the kitchen and drank several glasses of ice water to feel comfortable. She returned to the room. Seeing that there was still movement in the bathroom, I got into bed again. She touched her cell phone out of habit, and then she remembered that she had dropped her cell phone just now. Just look for it quickly. Sunian really felt that his heart was broken when he saw the mobile phone with a shabby screen. After all, for people in modern society, the mobile phone is the second life. And she also saved so many photos of handsome guys, and, no more. This led to the fact that even if Lee Baiken just wore a pair of boxer briefs and hung out, Sunian didn't even look at him. My cell phone, I actually threw my cell phone because of Lee Baiken, a stubborn bastard. It's so uncomfortable, my heart is so uncomfortable. Why did I forget at that time that such an important thing as a mobile phone cannot be dropped? Hearing this, Lee Baiken quickly walked to her side. But before Lee Baiken had time to say, he would immediately arrange for Josu to send a new one. My photos of handsome guys and all my resources are all gone, even if I change my mobile phone. Lee Baiken. Your phone is broken. Sunian raised his head and nodded obediently. Lee Baiken looked pitiful, like Sunian who had lost her favorite toy. Although her messy thoughts were indeed a bit irritating, she still couldn't help but want to comfort her. It was my sudden appearance just now that caused you to break your phone. I will be responsible for you. Do not know why. When he heard the words "I will be responsible for you," Sunian's heart moved. Especially when I saw Lee Baiken speaking with a serious look on his face, it even felt like he was talking about some important life commitment. Damn it, why is she thinking too much again? I have to say that Lee Baiken, the president, is treated very well. Soon the latest mobile phone was placed in front of her. She can understand the mobile phone, but other things. I didn't give you some things before, so I'll give them to you this time, Lee Baiken said as he pushed the things in front of him. What's this? My main card. Sunian was confused when he heard this. Main card, why are you giving me this? In general novels, doesn't the male protagonist give the female protagonist a secondary card? What is this guy doing with my main card? Under Sunian's confused eyes, Lee Baiken said, that's it? I don't usually have any big expenses. If I do, I usually go to the company's accounts, so it's useless for me to hold this, but he said when he got here. Lee Baiken stopped for a moment, but I have a condition. Sunian heard the last words and chuckled twice in his heart. I knew that there must be conditions for Lee Baiken to be so kind to me. Return all the old man's cards. Sunian was stunned after hearing this. After all, we are husband and wife. If you always use the old man's card, it will not sound good if it gets out. Lee Baiken knew that the old man later gave Sunian another card. He understood the dependence on the old man in Sunian's heart. Lee Baiken knew very clearly that if he wanted Sunian to change, he had to do better than the old man. Only then did Sunian understand that he was the one she could rely on. Lee Baiken's eyes were a little hot. But the next moment, he seemed to have been splashed with water. Damn, is this dog-licking attitude? You want to cut off my finances, but even the old man knows about secretly giving me the card. It's really too much. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 216. Chapter 216. All property is transferred to Sunian. If someone had told Lee Baiken before that he knew what regret felt like, then Lee Baiken might have felt that that person was playing a trick on him. But now Lee Baiken has really experienced what regret feels like. I actually don't have much money to spend, Baiken, you don't have to do this. It's useful. Lee Baiken interrupted Sunian directly. Sunian shut up immediately. Lee Baiken looked at Sunian. Do you think I did this to tease you? Do you think I did this just to embarrass you and see your jokes like before? Sunian. Of course she thought so, but when Lee Baiken said it directly, she was still a little embarrassed for no reason. Sunian doesn't know what to say now. Lee Baiken then said to Josu next to him, help me sort out all the property in my name, and then transfer it to Sunian's name. These words successfully surprised both Sunian and Josu. They all have only one idea in their minds. Lee Baiken is crazy. I really knew that I was wrong about what happened before. I think in your eyes, you may think that I am acting. I understand this idea, but I want to prove that I am not acting. At this moment, Sunian wanted to find something in Lee Baiken's eyes that could prove that he was acting. But nothing can be found. Are you crazy? Sunian said uncontrollably. But when Lee Baiken heard this, he wasn't angry at all. Maybe I'm crazy. I know it was my fault for what happened between me and Lan Min before. I shouldn't let you bear it. You shouldn't bear it. You shouldn't fail to do what a husband should do. These are just external things. If I can make you trust me, then everything will be worth it. At this moment, Sunian really didn't know whether Lee Baiken was acting to gain his trust so that he could donate a kidney to Lan Min, or whether he was sincere. If it's the former, then Lee Baiken is really a very powerful licker, and he can actually do this for his sweetheart. If it was the latter, it would make Sunian a little flustered. After all, Lee Baiken's character is not like this. Why is this happening? What does Lee Baiken want to do? Why is he different from Lee Baiken in his previous life? What has changed this time? When Li Baikan heard this, his heart suddenly suffocated. Sunian was finally able to realize that he was different from before, from the so-called Li Baikan. But I have a condition. Sunian was inexplicably relieved after hearing this. Hey, I almost got fooled, let me just tell you, how could Li Baikan give me so much? It really made me almost think that the sun rose from the west today. My condition is that you must be my wife. Sunian, this request is not too much. Sunian. Now Sunian really thinks this guy is crazy. Li Baikan stood up and walked towards Sunian. After all, at a time like this, what he had to do was to strike while the iron was hot, and take this opportunity to let Sunian completely understand that he had begun to change, and he was no longer the Li Baikan he was before. But he hasn't reached Sunian yet. Damn it, I was deceived by this guy again. Isn't it his property? What's the point of this? It's like I care a lot after all, I'm his legal wife. After this guy dies, it will be me in the end anyway, but it's just earlier. What's the big deal about this? Li Baikan. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 217. Chapter 217. Mr. Liu has a lot of drama. Li Baikan does what he says. He immediately transferred all his property to Sunian except the company's shares. In fact, he also wanted to give her the shares, but he was worried that the company would have problems, so he kept the shares. After the news spread, everyone was shocked. After all, everyone knew that Li Jianhong forced Sunian to Li Baikan's side, and this Li Baikan had a deep love for Lan Mi, and there was even news that Lan Min's kidneys had problems, which happened to be Sunian's. Can be matched. So Li Baikan used strong methods to force Sunian to submit. Now this is actually spreading again. Everyone couldn't help but sigh that Sunian's methods were very superb. Of course, Lu Jing sent this news to Lan Ren immediately. When Lan Min heard the news, he was stunned. What, how could Li Baikan give so much property to Sunian? Something must have happened. Yes, considering Li Baikan's attitude of hating Sunian so much, how could he give so many things to Sunian? Yes, that must be the case. She immediately walked straight to the door of the ward. But before she could reach the door, she was stopped by the nurse. Lan Min, where are you going? You can't go out now. How many times have I told you, don't you have ears? Your body is not strong enough now, okay, you need to take a good rest. No, I can't rest here. I have to go to see Baikan. Baikan needs me now. There must be something wrong with Baikan, that's why I do this. At times like this, I have to find Baikan's side. How uncomfortable it would be for Baikan if he wasn't by his side. The nurse didn't waste any time, just grabbed her wrist and pushed her hard onto the bed. If anything goes wrong, Li Baikan's husband and wife are very loving. If anything goes wrong, just don't make trouble. The husband and wife are loving and affectionate. I don't know why, but Lan Min felt very uncomfortable after hearing this. She didn't know why she felt uncomfortable. No, Baikan won't fall in love with her. You may not know how much Baikan hates her. Baikan once told me that he felt sick when he saw her, so now this situation occurs. Something must have happened to Baikan. The more Lan Min said this, the more he felt that he was right. But the nurse laughed after hearing this. Why are you so excited? It's as if Li Baikan likes you. Huh, they are a legitimate couple. As for you, your current treatment is not nice to say, you are just a mistress. Mr. Li hasn't appeared here for a long time, I guess he's tired of it. These words successfully caused severe pain in Lan Min's chest. Although the nurse said this according to the people above did not want anything to happen to this woman. He immediately supported Lan Min and said, Lan Min, are you okay? What's wrong with you? You feel uncomfortable there. I want to see Baikan, I want to see Baikan, I want to see Baikan. Then the whole ward began to be in chaos. A little while ago, the little nurse came to Lu Jing cautiously, "Mr. Lu, I followed your wishes. Miss Lan has a physical problem, and I didn't know this would happen." Lu Jing looked over. The little nurse immediately lowered her head, waiting for Lu Jing to get angry. But the next moment, Lu Jing waited and said with a smile, "No, you did a good job. That's what you should do. You should let Lan Zhen know who is the best person for her. Don't worry about your benefits. I will never do it, I'll give you less." These words made the nurse nod crazily. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich John Word. Chapter 218. Chapter 218. Mr. Lu, don't worry, as long as I'm here, I will never let anyone hurt you. When Lan Min wakes up again. I saw Lu Jing with a worried look on his face. Then he sat up and immediately grabbed Lu Jing's clothes. "Lu Jing, why haven't you come these past few days, and why haven't you answered my calls? Why, do you think I'm a burden, so you don't want me anymore?" When he heard this, Lu Jing felt really sad. But it was uncomfortable, but Lu Jing also recognized what Li Baikan said about long-term pain being worse than short-term pain, and then he said, "Jian'er, I spent a lot of effort to get here, and Li Baikan doesn't know why. I wanted to come to see you, but Li Baikan said he didn't want me to come to see you." "How are you? What did you say?" "Baikan won't let you see me." Lan Min turned up the volume. Such a good opportunity to throw dirty water on Li Baikan. How could Lu Jing let go of such an opportunity? He said you didn't choose him, so he must not be in his heart. If he is not there, then why would he pay so much to you? Everything is not worth it. Did Baikan really say that? If you really say that, can I still lie to you? Lu Jing sighed deeply after saying this. You may not know how big my heart was when I heard Li Baikan say such words. Anger, how can you say that? True love doesn't expect anything in return. After Lu Jing said this, he looked at Lan Min affectionately. But, Lan Min didn't look at him at all. "No, this can't be what Baikan said. You lied to me. It must be Sunian who is causing trouble. Yes, it must be Sunian who is talking nonsense." When Lan Min said this, he pulled Lu Jing tightly. "Clothes, Lu Jing, you must help me. I want to see Baikan, I want Baikan, I want Baikan to tell me in person. If Baikan doesn't tell me in person, then I will never believe it." Lu Jing really didn't expect that Li Baikan had such a great status in Lan Min's heart. Fortunately, he still has a backup plan. At this moment, a group of people wearing white coats appeared. In the past few days, Lan Zhen has been psychologically affected by these people in white coats. When he saw these people, he subconsciously hid behind Lu Jing. "Lu Jing, help me, I don't want to stay here, I don't want to stay here at all." Lu Jing, on the other hand, protected the person behind him with an upright expression. "Jian'er, don't worry, as long as I'm here, I will never let anyone hurt you." One of the men in white coats said coldly, "Master Lu, don't do this. You will only make it difficult for us to deal with Mr. Li. When dealing with Li Baikan, haha, why don't you go and ask around? Li Baikan is nothing in front of me. Li Baikan is nothing in front of me. When dealing with him, I'll give it to you. You'd better get out of the way now. If you don't get out of the way, don't blame me for being rude to you." When Lu Jing said this, he secretly glanced at Lan Min beside him. Sure enough, he found Lan Min looking at him. He, this method really works. At this moment, Bai Deco directly started to fight with Lu Jing. Lan Jing stared at Lu Jing closely, hoping that Lu Jing could beat everyone away, but unexpectedly, in the end, Lu Jing was pinned down by the man in a white coat. "Let me go quickly. If you don't let me go, I will be rude to you. But the white coat suppressed him firmly and said mechanically, sorry, according to Mr. Li's wishes, we can only send you out. Mr. Lu, ha ha ha, if I do this, I will definitely love me to death and make me think about how many children I should have in the future. Li Baikan, keep doing this, I'm optimistic about you. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich John Word. Chapter 219. Chapter 219. Even he now thinks it's okay to name their future child. Let him go, let him go. Lu Jing, who finally appeared, was Lan Min's only hope. How could Lan Ji let people leave like this? But two other people in white coats also appeared behind her and controlled Lan Min tightly. With such a posture, if you didn't know better, you would think that they were a pair of lovers, who were separated like this. Jian'er, don't worry, I will definitely come to rescue you. No matter what method I use, I will save you from Li Baikan's clutches. When we arrived outside the ward, where Lan Min could not see him, the man in the white coat immediately put Lu Jing on the ground respectfully and carefully. Master Lu, are you okay? We didn't hurt you. Lu Jing twisted his waist after standing still. What did you do? When you grabbed me just now, you used so much force that it hurt me. The people in white coats lowered their heads like little wives, and then whispered, I'm sorry, we were wrong, please forgive me, Mr. Lu. If it were something else, then Lu Jing would definitely deal with them without hesitation. But Lu Jing knew that in times like this, the more it was like this, the more true it was. Then he cleared his throat. Okay, I know you didn't mean it. Forget it this time. If there is another time, if so, then I won't take care of you properly. When the people in white coats heard this, they lowered their heads one after another. Okay, don't obstruct my eyes here, just go and do whatever you need to do, don't waste time here. When the people in white coats heard this, they left quickly. Lu Jing twisted his waist. He knew that his plan was about to succeed. Now he estimated that in Lan Min's eyes, Li Baikan was a heartless person, and he only had to show how much he had paid to save her in the next time. In this case, Lan Min will definitely be grateful to himself. After all, women like the idea of heroes saving beauties. When he thought of this, Lu Jing couldn't help but feel a little better. In the current situation, he really didn't worry about so many things at all. You must know that in order to make the scene more realistic, those people in white coats were specially found by him. Promise to perform the scene well. Lan Min's heart will definitely belong to him only in the end. When thinking of this, Lu Jing couldn't help but start to imagine what it would be like to finally hold the beauty in his arms. Even he now thinks it's okay to name their future child. Just thinking about it makes me happy, ha ha ha. Lanyon in the ward clenched her fists tightly. When he calmed down, Lan Min realized something was wrong. It seemed like those doctors-looking people just mentioned Baikan's name in front of her. This was abnormal, very abnormal. This also makes Lan Min certain. Sunian must be causing trouble this time. Sunian must have felt that she had to rely on her kidneys to survive, so she used this as an excuse to threaten Baikan. That's right, that's definitely the case. When he thought of this, Lan Min felt angry. She looked around the environment of this ward and felt that she could not sit here and wait to die. If we just sit back and wait for death, what will happen to Baikan? In this situation, she must stand up and save Baikan. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich John Word. Chapter 220. Chapter 220. Li Baikan, Are you trying to trick me? Lan Min ran away. This news will be known to everyone as quickly as possible. After learning the news, Lu Jing immediately suspected Li Baikan and immediately called Li Baikan. The moment Li Baikan pressed the answer button, Lu Jing's irritable voice sounded, "Li Baikan, you are playing tricks on me, right? I have spent so much effort to help you deal with that guy Huo Linyuan, but you are good, but you stab me in the back. Li Baikan, are you alive? You are so old, don't you know the word integrity?" "I didn't do it." Lu Jing sneered when he heard this. "Do you think I am a fool? If you didn't do it, who else could have done it? Is it still done?" Li Baikan's face on the other end of the phone didn't look very good either. If it weren't for this guy, it would still be of some use to him. He hung up the phone long ago. How could he give this guy a chance to talk nonsense in front of him? Li Baikan took a deep breath, used a lot of effort to calm down his mood, and said patiently, "I am not the only one involved with Lan Min, and I have reached an agreement with you. If I break the agreement, wouldn't everything I've done before be in vain? Yes, why didn't I think of this?" Li Baikan. If Li Baikan had blamed the so-called plot before, but now he doesn't blame it at all. At least the so-called plot didn't set him up to be a stupid person like Lu Jing. What if he wakes up and finds out that he is someone like Lu Jing? Li Baikan even felt that he might not want to live in this world. "Then what should we do now, Li Baikan? I don't care. We are cooperators now. You can't ignore me. You have to find a way for me." When he heard this, Li Baikan almost couldn't control himself. Sneered out loud. "Now we know they are cooperators?" It was as if the person who was so aggressive just now was not him. Li Baikan didn't tolerate him at all, and sneered directly, "What you should do now is not to argue with me, but to find out what method Huo Linyuan used to get Lan Min away, and find out where Lan Min is now. Place. Yes, 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 I can't even remember it. If you don't tell me, I'm going to check it now. Hang up the phone immediately." Looking at the hung-up phone in his hand, Li Baikan now felt that he needed to start thinking about changing his chess pieces. After all, he felt that if he continued to have contact with this guy, he might be to death. If that's the case, it's really not worth it. However, Li Baikan also knew that he couldn't count on Lu Jing. If he really counted on him, then his daylilies would already be cold. Then it's not worth it at all. Then Li Baikan began to order people to check Lanzu's way out. Just like that, I don't know how many people are looking for Lan Min with such a posture. I can't wait to turn the city upside down. But no matter how hard they tried, they still couldn't find Lan Min's whereabouts. It was as if Lan Min suddenly disappeared from the world. And no one can guess. This is the situation. At this moment, he was actually in front of Sunian, and said to Sunian angrily, "Sunian, I don't know what method you used to threaten Li Baikan, but I put it here today. You have the ability to come to me, don't go to Baikan." End of this chapter.